10 seconds. I'd like to call tonight's Somersworth Planning Board meeting to order. Anna, please call the roll.
Ron LaHoulier.
Here.
Jason Barry.
Here.
Jeremy Rhodes.
Here.
Chris Horton.
Here.
Doug Haberman.
Here. This time I'd like to appoint Mr. Haberman as a full voting member for the evening. First item is approval of the minutes of October 16, 2024. Anybody have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Barry, second by Mr. Horton. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Committee reports. There is a summary of the land use board reports. Are there any comments of the planning board? Seeing none, city council report. Mr. Willem or Mr. Vincent are not in attendance this evening, so we'll move on. Director Mears, do you have anything concerning the city council?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, Stratford Regional Planning Commission update.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry I'm late.
Welcome, Mr.
Give me
Richardson.
a second here. All right. I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I can tell you what the results of it were. I happened to be in Pennsylvania, but there was discussion about the current metropolitan plan, and there are two projects there that involve Somersworth that a vote was taken about. One of them was the, let me catch my breath here. One of them was the intersection at Blackwater Road and High Street and Indigo Hill Road for the road improvement project that's scheduled for later on down the road in the 10-year plan. Originally, the estimate for completing that plan was, total estimate was some $3,663,000. The approved amount from the federal government for that project for engineering and right-of-way studies was about $490,000 at that time. Now that we're down the road a little bit, costs have gone up to $4,318,000, and the amount that was approved for that project from the federal government was $628,000 due to the increased cost. So there's some benefit there for us. Certainly an increase in the cost of the project, but also the cost that the government is tossing in for the engineering and right-of-way studies. The other project was the Route 108 All Streets, Complete Streets program. And again, when the project was first proposed, it was roughly $46 million. It is now $53 million. And the amount that it was approved for the engineering and right-of-way study was, at the time, about $1,600,000. And now that's been increased to $4,600,000. So those are two pretty good things that are still on the board and coming our way eventually.
All right, thank you very much. Next is the 2030 Committee, Mr. Barry.
No report, Mr. Chair.
Housing Committee, Mr. Horton.
Yeah, at the latest Housing Committee meeting, there was continued review of ordinances and recommended changes. So continued discussion on review and the different ordinances. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item is old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Director Mears.
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Next item, new business, adoption of master plan, natural resources, and land use chapters. Public hearing. Director Mears, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should have all received my memo. We did start this process back in January 2024, working with Stratford Regional Planning Commission on the natural resource and land use master plan chapters. This work was funded through the grant from Piscataqua Regional Estuaries Partnership, PREPA. We did receive over 300 responses for public input. We held a workshop meeting with the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. Last month, the draft natural resource and land use chapters were presented to the Planning Board. There was one public comment received, and that was to provide clarification on the wetlands buffer from 100-foot and 150-foot buffer areas. We do need to have a motion to adopt these chapters, so I'm looking for the board to make a motion on adoption.
Before the public hearing?
No, after, sorry.
Okay.
Open the public hearing.
So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Does anybody have any comments on the adoption of the master plan, natural resources, and land use chapters? Is there any correspondence concerning this item?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing none, close the public hearing. Turn to questions from the board. Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the adoption and master plan, the adoption of master plan, natural resources, and land use chapters.
Motion made by Mr. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Rhodes. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. At this time, is there anything else, any other action needed on this item?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Under new business item B, Opaque Melody LLC is seeking site plan approval for a 23,680 square foot recreational pickleball facility on a property located at 136 Route 108 in the Commercial Industrial CI District. Assesses map 64, lot 07, site number 25-2024. Director Mears.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to construct a 23,680 square foot recreational indoor pickleball facility. This did come before for conceptual review. The site has an existing single-family dwelling that is proposed to be demolished on site. The property is split between the commercial, industrial, and the residential single-family zoning district. The CI district runs a depth of 300 feet from Route 108 frontage. The commercial development is proposed within the CI portion of the lot. This is considered an athletic facility. We have reached out to Horsley Witten for review of the drainage and the stormwater of this site. We have not received that back. We were hoping to have that back for tonight's meeting. It's about a week out, according to Horsley Witten. The applicant has submitted a traffic assessment, which was prepared by Civil Works. And the site is designed with a sidewalk around the building and a bike rack. This property is located on an existing bus route with stops located at Regan Estates and Winchester Arms. The site shows infrastructure will be installed for future installation of EV charging stations. 2 are required. Planning staff feels that this is ready for planning board to review and start looking at this application. Conditionally approved, potentially.
Right, thank you. At this point, before I go on, Mr. Barden has arrived, and at this point, I'll appoint you as a full voting member for the evening. Next, look for a motion to accept the application.
So moved.
Mr. Horton.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the application as complete.
Motion made by Mr. Horton, seconded by Mr. Berry. Discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Bruton? Is your mic on? No. The button right in,
Oh. I knew I had to press this one, but not that one. Apologize. I'll start all over again because I remember all of that stuff.
thank you.
My name is FX Bruton, and I'm with Bruton and Barabee, and I represent the applicant tonight. With me is Joe Griffin, and he is with Civil Works, and he's going to do most of the presentation. I don't know if you want to do regional impact or do that at the end. You need to
We'll
do
do
that?
it at the end.
Okay.
Yep.
So in any event, we were here in front of you for design review, and we had a very good discussion, and there was a lot of good input. I think when you see our plan tonight, you'll see that we incorporated all of those comments, and that it was a good process to go through, and it resulted in a very good design. The main issue that I think was on most of the minds was the look and the design, and we are in between two residential houses. Albeit they're a little dated, but they're there, and they do represent New England style, and that was the request that we consider that. So what we have here is the old version of what we were showing you, and I don't know if everyone can see that. But that was our old version, and pretty similar to what the landscape is in terms of commercial properties. We did go through a redesign to address your concerns. I'm surprised how much a redesign now costs, but we did do it, and it looks great. And so I wanted to just see if you could just show the whole board, and I know you probably have that in your packet, but there's a lot of emphasis on trying to minimize the front, put the dormers on, create colors and motifs that would get to the desired result. We're really happy with it ourselves. We hope you are as well. I think it's going to look great in that spot, and it'll complete the athletic Miracle Mile of Somersworth with the works, the Hindenburg, the Dome, and this beautiful facility. So Somersworth will be the place to go for all of that. So we're really excited about the project. We have a number of waivers that we think are very reasonable and allow us to bring this facility to Somersworth and this site. It's an odd site, as Michelle mentioned. It's cut between the commercial and the residential zone, and but we've stayed within those parameters. We have, again, a few waiver requests, and Joe's going to go through those. One thing I wanted to address, there was some conditions of approval that we have no problem with. One of the issues that came up when we went to a department head meeting, SRTC, was asking that we put some money aside for a connection to what is anticipated to be a sidewalk created by DOT. And we're willing to do that. The cost is really not that great. It's about 60 feet at its worst, including curvatures and all of that. That's about 40 feet for concrete sidewalks, so that's about $2,400. If you add 10% to that, you get up to roughly $3,000. So we would suggest that we put that in escrow, and we're happy to do it. So I think that is really kind of the only other issue. Then the drainage, I understand, is, I think it's going to be fairly straightforward, and I think we have a general sense that if there are any comments, they're more housekeeping comments. The land is excellent drainage, excellent soils, and I'll let Joe speak to that, obviously. But we're very excited about the project. We hope you are too, and I'll stop talking because Joe's going to tell you a lot more interesting information than I would. But we appreciate, the process. We also appreciate your input when we came before, and we hope you'll see that we've incorporated that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruton.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Griffin with Civilworks New England. I don't know about interesting, but thank you for that, Attorney Bruton. So as Michelle had indicated, here in support of a proposed recreational facility, which is to be located at 136-108, Route 108, and the lot number is 64-7. The lot is zoned commercial with industrial along 108, and it's zoned R1 towards the back, probably 1/3 of the lot. Our building and pavement infrastructure is outside of that zone. The site has an existing single-family residence. The site utilizes on-site well and septic. It has 2 points of access to New Hampshire 108, and the lot, other than the development, is partially wooded with the remainder of the area being grassed. The project is proposing approximately 87,600 square feet of disturbance. That disturbance includes the demolition of the existing residence, garage, well, all of it. The construction of 23,680 square foot recreational facility, a single access drive that will provide access to 52 parking spaces on site. It also provides an extension of the city water system approximately 400 feet down Route 108 to bring it to the front of our property. Based off from the comments from DPW, the recommendation was for a 12-inch. The plans show 8-inch at this point. The applicants have no concern with upping that pipe size to the 12-inch that's being requested. We're proposing an on-site septic and drainage improvements and the proposed landscaping. The project proponent is seeking 6 waivers. Those waivers are buffer yard requirements for a Class B. The requirements are for 50-foot building setback. The project is providing on 2 of the corners a 31-foot and a 46-foot buffer, as well as 35-foot screening, and the applicant is proposing an 8-foot fence to provide that privacy barrier. There are 2 appearance standards, the first being the building design and materials being compatible with the surrounding properties. I believe the applicant has worked with the architect to provide a beautiful building that fits well into that neighborhood. And then the other appearance standard would be the visibility of the metal building adjacent to the residential parcels. They've put a lot of time and effort into the cladding of the building to make it look like it's going to fit in that neighborhood. The 4th waiver would be the city requires high-intensity soil survey or site-specific soil mapping. We're proposing to utilize the web soil survey data from USDA. It's a small site, and we've provided approximately 15 test pits out there. All of the test pits indicate that the web soil survey data is correct. We also provided 2 infiltration tests out there in accordance with New Hampshire DES requirements for sizing the stormwater systems that are out there. So the stormwater management was designed through the test pit info and the field testing, so we're requesting that waiver. There's a parking lot setback requirement that parking lots not be within 15 feet. The drive aisle to get to the back parking lot is within 12.2 feet, and the back parking lot, the corner closest to the property line, is approximately 9.7 feet. Those areas will have that 8-foot barrier there, that fence there as well. And then the 6th waiver that we're requesting is the stormwater setback requirements, not having those stormwater appurtenances within that 15-foot. The site's very difficult to work with from the standpoint of how level and flat the site is. What that prevents us from doing from a drainage standpoint is providing catch basins and manholes. So typically when you have that 15-foot buffer, you're putting your catch basins, your manholes along that buffer so you can gather the water, pull it to the back of the property where you can treat it. With the site being as flat as it is, the only means for moving stormwater around that site is open channels. Those open channels are running along those property lines, and in some instances, they're also gathering the water that's flowing from the abutting properties into our site as well. So it was very difficult for us to eliminate that without having to raise the site up, which would have made the site unbuildable for this project. As Attorney Bruton had indicated, there was a traffic assessment that was provided. It indicates adequate site distance, and the project's not anticipated to add a significant new amount of traffic to the area. The drainage improvements to the site include roof drains, conveyance swale, sediment forebays, and 2 infiltration basins. The stormwater design attenuates and treats the flow for not only the 2, but the 10, the 25, and the 50-year storm events as well. As Attorney Bruton had indicated, the soils out there are excellent, so we took full advantage of recharging the groundwater on this site. And what does that mean? That means that there's less water flowing to the abutting neighbors to prevent those problems and those issues. The project's going to require site plan approval through this board. It requires a New Hampshire ISDS septic permit. It requires a New Hampshire DOT driveway permit, and it will require a New Hampshire DOT excavation permit. Now, the DOT driveway permit and DOT excavation permit have been submitted to DOT, and we've already started receiving comments back for the excavation permit. At this time, I'll open it up to the board for any questions you may have.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
This time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anybody have any comments on this application? Director Mears, is there any correspondence concerning this application?
There's been no correspondence from abutters, but Director of Public Works, Michael Babinski, did submit a memo which was received on your, as part of your packet. It's additional information. There isn't, and I can go over this after if you want, but it's basically, they're proposing an 8-inch main. Director Bobinski reached out to Wright Pierce, and they're recommending a 12-inch water main, be used.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Close the public hearing. Turn to questions from the board. Mr. Richardson and Mr. Berry.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the pipe that we're talking about, the reason, Michelle, maybe you can jump in on this, the reason for the request to go from an 8 to a 12 is because we're being asked also to take over responsibility for the maintenance of that system? Is that right?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Yep, that makes sense then.
And this will allow the further, if the city determines that they want to extend it down to the Dover line, this would allow that to occur.
Thank you.
Mr. Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so I guess first things first, thank you guys for coming to us for the conceptual review. We really like those. You know, it really allows us a chance to really hit things with a fine-tooth comb before you go and waste your time and your money. I really like the designs. I'm very happy with what you guys did. So much that I've just been scribbling since I sat down. First off, the architectural designs, I love them. I really do. You know, it's not only does it improve the local area, but it improves the entire drag. I mean, it's on par with the entire street. You look all the way down to the works, you see the same sort of architecture. It's beautiful. Not going to be opposed to any of that. The waivers that are tied into that, I'm going to support. I'm also loving the fact that you guys are building a court club. You know, I mentioned it during your conceptual review. Court clubs are a dying breed. I used to play a lot of racquetball in college, and I had to travel a long, long way. I'm talking like New York to find a good court club. It's really nice to see that those sorts of sports are coming back. I'm also pleased that this court club is also very much in alignment with the direction the city is moving. I mean, everybody's seen the Dome. Go check out the Dome. As soon as those doors are open, go in there and check it out. Athletics is becoming a thing we're becoming known for. I love that. It's also a lot of fun, right? So we have a lot of fun stuff, bang, 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 right down the street, right? With the fun center right there. We have go play tennis, go play pickleball, go play soccer, right? Getting back over to the project itself. I have no complaints with the drainage system. That's normally where I tend to rip applicants apart. I give you credit. That is the longest transition I have ever seen on any project. So I give you guys credit. You guys really worked hard to make that work. Love the design. As far as the buffers, That was the one thing during the conceptual review I was a little bit iffy about. I think the landscape architect did a nice job putting some separation between the parking lot and the house. The one thing I will ask, did anybody knock on that neighbor's door and make sure that they were cool with it? Just to, that's not even, you don't have to answer that, but it would be really great if you guys did.
Sorry. I think this is the right answer, and if it's not, I'll be corrected. But we did reach out to one of the owners who was an investor who had a tenant, and the tenant expressed acceptance and approval. You know, they liked it. We did try to knock on the other door, but we didn't get a response, and I think that's accurate. Yeah. And so that effort was at least made.
Good. At least the effort was made.
Yeah, and you may recall at our conceptual, the neighbor behind us actually had installed a pickleball court on his property, his and her property, and they asked about membership already for this. So it's kind of an interesting tact. And then, you know, we started with the fact that we understand these outdoor facilities are kind of the issue, if there is one, with this kind of facility because of the noise. But this is all obviously inside, so we addressed that as well. So I think we haven't heard from any abutter, and obviously the board hasn't either, that there would be a concern.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Bruton. Yeah, for me, it's all about being a good steward. Be a good neighbor, right? That was the real takeaway that I asked you guys to leave with from me. So that's good. I'm very pleased to see that. So hopefully all it takes is one neighbor that's not happy to ruin a good business, right? So, okay, good. As far as the waivers are concerned, I'm okay with waiver number 1. I'm okay with waivers 2 and 3, mainly to what I've already spoken about, to the architecture. And as far as waiver number 4, I'm okay with it, but I would like to make sure that Horsley Witten has the final say in the matter. So I'll defer to them for acceptance. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mr. Haberman.
This may be an oversight. I didn't see anything on the plan for trash or dumpster.
Actually, I'm glad you raised that. It's in the planner's memo, and it came up at SRTC. We had originally proposed curbside, but we indicated to SRTC, and it would be part of a plan change, that it would be private pickup. And we don't expect really a lot. It's not a dumpster style operation, basically, so it would be private pickup for that.
Yeah, my other concern with that is if you did have a function there, how would you remove it if you had a significant amount of trash?
Yep, we'll keep it away from, obviously, the facade of the building, because it doesn't help that building. And then, again, my office has a mini, large trash bin, and they've been they accommodate that, and we anticipate using that same service. So I think it'll work out pretty well.
Yeah, I guess if there was a bigger note on there so we could see it a little bit better.
And that's what the planner asked for as part of the conditions. And so yes, it's already in there that we would do that.
Other than that, I agree with the rest of the board. I really love the change in the design, and
Great.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rhodes.
A couple of comments here. First off, I'm happy to see a landscape plan that I have no notes on. That doesn't happen too often with me on this board. The only note that I would have is a positive one. I noticed a couple of American elms on there, and I'm really excited to see disease-resistant varieties of those coming back in. So glad to see you're taking the lead on planting a few of those on the property. I was going to have virtually the same comments that Mr. Berry did on the drainage. This is a site where all up and down that run of 108, the soil drainage is excellent, and you're taking advantage of that to recharge, which I was really glad to see. On the appearance standards, I think you've gone considerably further than a lot of applicants have, both in this section of 108 and other locations around the city. It's a very attractive building. I think you've done the absolute most you could do to what is essentially a large box, make it not look like a large box from the entryway. I'm very impressed with how that turned out and wanted to commend you for it. The only question I did have is the use of a septic system on the site. Is there not city sewer out to the site? It's just the water that's extendable?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Makes perfect sense. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that it wasn't possible to connect. I have no concerns with the waivers beyond what Mr. Barry mentioned about Horsley Witten. I would like to include that as a condition, that any questions from them be adequately addressed. But beyond that, I have no concerns with this whatsoever.
Thank you.
Mr. Horton?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just agree with what's already been said. I think you guys did a great job incorporating the feedback into the architectural standards. I think it's right in line with the facilities that are up the road, up and down that road already. So I agree. I think as well as I'm good with the waivers. So I think it was a well thought out and presented project. So I think
Thank you.
Mr. Haberman?
Yeah, one other thought, where the septic system is and whether or not any of the other abutters may have wells and what would be the distance, it was the safe distance away from the septic system.
We'll check that.
Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, just one more comment, since it's already been brought up. I was going to save it for when we got to the waiver, but since I was the one that brought up the New England style, you guys hit the ball right out of the park. I mean, it's for what's been, essentially a box, as it has been said. You changed that. You did the best. I was really curious to see where you were going to go with that, and you did an excellent job. So instead of saving it for the waiver time, I'll mention it now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Entertain a motion for regional impact. Mr. Richardson?
I'll make a motion that there is no regional impact for this one.
Motion made by Mr. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Barry. Discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we'll dive into the waivers. Anybody have a motion for waiver number 1? Mr. Horton?
Thank you. I move that the request of OPEC Melody LLC for a waiver from Section 12.4B.7 of the site plan regulation to allow paved areas within 15-foot setback be approved.
Motion made by Mr. Horton, seconded by Mr. Barry. Discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Waiver is granted. Looking for a motion on waiver number 2. Mr. Horton?
I move that the request of OPEC Melody LLC for a waiver from Section 12.7B.1 of the site plan review regulation requirement that new construction is compatible with New England architecture and surrounding properties be approved.
Motion made by Mr. Horton, seconded by Mr. Barry. Discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Waiver is granted. Entertain a motion for waiver number 3. Mr. Richardson?
I move that the request of OPEC LLC for waiver from 7B3 site review regulations allow metal siding be approved.
Motion made by Mr. Richardson.
Sorry about that. All right. I move that the request of Opaque Melody LLC for the waiver of Section 12.7B3 of Site Plan Regulations to allow metal siding be approved.
Motion made by Mr. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Barry. Discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Waiver is granted. Entertain a motion for waiver number 4. Mr. Horton?
Waiver number 4, I move that the request of OPEC Melody LLC for a waiver from Section 1217A4 of the site plan review regulations requirement to provide high-intensity soil mapping of the site-specific soil be approved.
Motion made by Mr. Horton, seconded by Mr. Barry. Discussion. Those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Waiver is granted. Entertain a motion for waiver number 5. Mr. Horton?
I move that the request of OPEC Melody LLC for waivers from Section 1217A79 of the site plan review regulations to allow permanent drainage structures within 1/2 the requirement minimum setback of 15 feet be approved.
Motion made by Mr. Horton, second by Mr. Barry. Discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? The waiver is granted. This time, I'd like to ask Director Mears to review the conditions of approval for the site plan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. 1, plan revisions. Please include the following notes: revised notes on the plan. Update note 7, sheets 5. Annual inspection reports are due in July. Landscaping shall be maintained in good condition, and any dead vegetation shall be replaced within 1 year. Dead vegetation shall be replaced within the same plant material unless written permission from the city planner is received. All parking area lighting shall be equipped with a timer and shall shut off no later than 10 p.m. each day and remain off until the following evening. All outdoor lighting, including security lights, shall be downlit and fully shielded, so no direct light is visible from adjacent properties and roadways. Include New Hampshire DOT state permit on the list of permits. Please clarify that the intent of the trash pickup will be a private service. Provide a fence detail and update the fence notes on the plan to indicate the 8-foot proposed fence height. Please indicate the roof drain size, material, and slope on the plans. Please indicate the sanitary sewer pipe size, material, and slopes on the plan. Please model the conveyance swales from the sediment forebase to the infiltration bases in the HydroCAD model to show if the water elevation will be contained within the swale in the larger events. The proximity to adjacent properties is of concern regarding the conveyance of the swale and direction of stormwater flow. Fire hydrant must be Cloud Eddy or Kennedy K81, both open left. A new hydrant shall be located on the property in the location acceptable to the fire chief. Please list all waivers granted on the plan. Applicant shall address any outstanding comments from Horsley Witten third-party review to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Community Development. We are adding an additional revision, 12-inch water main as requested by the Director of Public Works. Conditions that must be met prior to final approval. The final plan shall bear the stamp and signature of an engineer, licensed land surveyor, and landscape architect. Please submit 4 plans and a full set of plans to the planning office for final endorsement. Federal and state permits. All federal and state permits shall be in place before plan signing and recording, including New Hampshire DES alteration of terrain and New Hampshire DOT driveway permit. Conditions to be completed prior to the start of site work. Construction cost estimate for the project shall be submitted to the Department of Development Services. A pre-construction meeting is required prior to the start of site work. An escrow account in the amount set by the city's contract engineer and agreeable to the Department of Development Service will be established for site construction inspections prior to any site work. A performance surety in the amount agreeable to the Department of Development Services, but not less than 25% of the cost of site construction, determined by the engineer's estimate of construction value, will be established for on-site erosion control and site restoration prior to the start of any site work or off-site improvements. If all work is completed as proposed, this account will be refunded. The applicant shall apply for a new water connection permit. The applicant will be required to pay standard water connection fees assessed on the new properties connecting to the water system. Erosion control shall be properly installed prior to the start of any construction. Erosion control shall be properly maintained throughout construction. Any breaks or breaches shall be repaired within 48 hours. Landscaping survival surety is 10% of the total cost of landscaping and shall be held for a period of 2 growing seasons to guarantee the survival of landscaping. All applicants requiring a stormwater management and erosion control plan shall submit relative pollutant accountant information to the Director of Planning and Community Development as required by the Public Works Director. Relevant pollutant tracking information shall be submitted prior to holding the pre-construction meeting. Post-construction pollutant information must be entered at the time as-built are submitted. Conditions applicable during and after construction. Building plans shall bear the stamp of a certified protection engineer licensed in New Hampshire to certify compliance with all egress, emergency lighting, smoke, heat, and CO detection system, fire alarm, monitoring and reporting systems, fire suppression systems, and any other fire protection or related life safety systems required by National or New Hampshire Code. A copy of the completed stormwater inspection and maintenance log shall be provided to the Department of Development Services annually on or before July 1st. This is an ongoing condition of approval. All landscaping shown on the plan shall be maintained, and any dead or dying vegetation shall be replaced in a timely manner. All outdoor lighting, including security lights, shall be downlit and shielded, and no direct visible light from adjacent properties and roadways. Per section 1923E9, the building shall display the designated address numbers in such a manner to be visible from the street, which abuts the main entrance to the property. Such numbers shall be a minimum of 3.5 inches in height and must be reflective. The proposed sidewalk connection shall be constructed when New Hampshire DOT constructs sidewalk along Route 108 as part of the complete street project. If the sidewalk is not constructed prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, an escrow in the amount of the cost of construction of the sidewalk shall be held until the sidewalk has been completed, and as-built plans are required as part of this project.
Thank you, Director Mears. Anybody have a site plan motion? Mr. Horton?
Thank you. I move that the application for OPEC Melody LLC for site plan approval of a 23,680 square foot recreational facility on property located at 136 Route 108 be approved with the conditions outlined in the director's memo.
Motion made by Mr. Horton, seconded by
Second for purposes of
Mr.
discussion.
Rhodes.
I would request that we add an additional condition so that to address any comments made by Horsley Witten in their memo, that those be resolved to the satisfaction of the city staff.
You go with that amendment?
As amended.
And seconded by
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes, Mr. Haberman. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Site plan's approved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, is there any new business to come before the board? Director Mears.
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we get into item 5, workshop business, accessory dwelling units, ADU workshop. Director Mears, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have included everybody's seat some additional language that was added from Anthony Jones and the Mayor's Housing Task Force. It's highlighted regarding the accessory dwelling unit conversation at the workshop last month. Basically, it's adding language that says an accessory dwelling unit shall be clearly subordinate to the principal residence on the property and shall maintain the aesthetic continuity with the primary dwelling unit as a single-family dwelling. So that was additional language that was added after discussion at last month's meeting.
Comments from the board? Mr. Horton?
Yep, thank you. I think we've done some pretty good discussion on this. I think overall it takes into account trying to improve the housing and abilities to create housing. So I guess for me, what's the step from here? Do we send this to City Council to be reviewed and voted on there as well?
Yes, that could be one of the options.
Okay.
Typically, Dave is the one that sponsors it, Councilman Witham, to send it on, but he's not here tonight.
Right, and I'm kind of good waiting for him to provide input and review of it as well. So.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Mr. Rhodes? And Mr. Haberman?
Only point I'd raise on this is there is a comment listed here on 19.24C regarding keeping some building design standards, and there's an example that Director Mears put in here of Newmarket's standards. I'd be in favor of essentially lifting that and dropping it here. I think it makes a lot of sense to have that so we don't have dramatically clashing ADUs, but I don't view what Newmarket's done as being particularly restrictive, and I think it would be appreciated by the residents of the city.
Mr. Haberman?
So I've been thinking about this. So when somebody does do it and they have an independent unit in there, neither one of them are owner occupied, or is there any requirement that they have to be owner occupied? And then if it becomes owner occupied, is there any restrictions on that or requirements?
Happy to answer that,
Director
Mr.
Mears?
Chairman. Yeah, so there is language that it has to be owner occupied, the single family dwelling.
Thank you.
I don't know if I missed it. Did they specify that they could be not in the main house, like in the apartment, or
Yeah, it could be either one. It says one of the two dwellings.
as long as they're in one or the other dwelling? Okay. Mr. Haberman?
Yeah, piggyback on what you said was, I also thought of, okay, this is supposed to be, is the goal here just to get more housing for people or more affordable housing compared to the owner that owns the larger home may or may not decide to stay in the larger home and move into the smaller one and rent the larger one for more money.
Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, it's item F on the back here about the owner occupation. It's either one. They get to do what you're just suggesting, so.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, addressing the intent on this, I think there's multiple intents behind ADU creation. One is additional housing, one is additional affordable housing, one is allowing property owners to structure the property as they want. We had a really good example raised of somebody who had lived in a larger structure, wanted to downsize but remain in the neighborhood that they're comfortable in, and then rent out the larger one. The way that this is written, it gives homeowners the ability to really control their own property and stay where they are, age in place, or adjust to changing needs over time. So I think it has a number of aims that are all commendable.
And as with past zoning changes, if it doesn't quite work out, you can always pull it back and fine tune it.
And then,
Mr. Barry?
sorry.
Yeah, and just to make sure that if the property is sold, the ADU dissolves, or, because then it would become a condo, wouldn't it?
So our regulations require annual filing fee. They're going to strike that filing fee, but every January 1st, you would have to submit that. So that would still be required as part of that. You wouldn't be able to condoize this unit.
Right. Okay, thanks.
And Mr. Berry read my mind.
Barden?
Michelle, perhaps you could provide some background as to the rationale behind Part C edits, the extensive edit regarding the removal of the requirement that the ADU cannot look like a duplex. Is it no longer believed that the appearance of a duplex is in aesthetic downgrade of the neighborhood?
Sorry, so Section C, is that the Newmarket example? Is it in the blue? Are you referring to?
Not in the blue. I apologize. I haven't gotten to the blue
Okay.
yet. I was just curious about C, the red edit.
Yes, that was proposed by the Mayor's Housing Task Force to remove that language regarding the aesthetics. And planning staff had recommended that we put some aesthetic standards back into this ordinance.
I agree with the restoration of such standards.
Now, currently, they can look like a duplex. Mr. Rhodes?
Based on my read of the new market edit that we're looking at potentially shamelessly stealing, which I fully support, there is a comment in there that for detached or attached units rather, the ADU's design shall achieve an appearance in all parts as a continuation or an accompaniment to the single-family residence, while designs giving the appearance of a duplex or multifamily structure are prohibited. A separate entrance in view from public right-of-way is allowed, provided the entrance is designed to harmonize with the primary dwelling unit in a manner not indicative of an entrance into a separate dwelling unit. So what the new market language here creates, from my view of it, is attached units maintain the appearance of a single-family home. Detached units are obviously a second unit, but there's language there around setting it back further. If the original entrance is less than 100 feet from the property line, so it clearly sets up a subsidiary structure on that. I think the way that Newmarket wrote this up, it maintains the appearance of a single-family home or a single-family home with a secondary structure like a guest house attached into the property.
I believe, if I remember in Durham, they have a single door entrance and then could be a door on each side, but it had to be like inside that mudroom or.
And I think this new market language does very much the same thing. That kind of thing would pass the muster on this from my read.
Newmarket's a beautiful town. All else equal, I'd trust their judgment. Thank you for clarifying that.
Further questions? Very well. At this time, is there any action that needs to be taken, or I believe Mr. Horton's wishes was to get some input from the councilor?
Yes, and I can add that language from Newmarket regarding the architectural standards and bring that back to the board, and also send that to the Mayor's Housing Task Force.
Okay.
I was just gonna agree with that, because I guess going back to this, so you're proposing that we add the blue section, is that, okay, yeah, okay. And I agree, I think, it'd be helpful to review it and kind of incorporate and understand really what is involved with it all as well. So I'm good with continuing this to the next
Next
planning
meeting.
board meeting.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you. Communications and miscellaneous. Any comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Mr. Barry, second by Mr. Haven. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Thank you very much.